Now it
Okay,
is.
good morning, Jackie. Jackie, why don't you lead us in today?
No, putting the pressure on me.
Why not?
You're the one who left everybody hanging last week.
I certainly did, but I'm going to leave them unhanging this week.
Good. We're picking up where we left off. This is our third and final
We're
one.
going right into it. I mean, don't we want to, I don't know, have dinner first?
Hold hands.
Is that, it's a
No,
bad.
we held hands. We held hands for 3 weeks.
We've been doing this topic for 3 weeks. Welcome anyone who's joining us today. You're probably joining us because we made a very big promise last week. We basically promised we were going to solve every problem you ever had, or at least one of the biggest problems that human beings have, and we're going to. But before we do, Jackie, just tell me a quick, interesting story from the weekend.
Oh, actually, I have to say, my daughter swam all weekend at state championships. So interesting. She did phenomenal.
Good.
But
All right. I love it.
yeah, I know. She wanted to
It's
say
all
hi,
good.
but she's in her pajamas. So I just told her to say hi from there.
Say hi,
Hi.
Isabella.
Yeah,
Okay.
so my weekend was covered in swim.
Fair enough. Fair
Covered.
enough. I asked you that question when I had an interesting story for the weekend,
Uh-huh.
and now I've forgotten it.
Told you
I
should have went
don't
first.
remember I don't remember at all what I was going to say. It was interesting. It was cute. People would have been entertained and informed, and now it's just gone from my consciousness.
How?
Don't get old, Jackie.
I'm trying not to.
This is what
It's
happens.
a trap. Stop.
I have no idea what went on with my weekend. So, okay, let's get into our topic. Jackie, as you know, it is my firmly held belief that all of the wisdom of the world was provided for human beings by 80s movies
True. And baseball analogies.
and baseball analogies. So we're going to do both today. So whether it was Miyagi talking about balance or Maverick talking about the importance of your wingman, all the wisdom of the world was distilled to us
Uh-huh.
from 1980s era movies.
So nobody could have survived before that.
I don't know how people did, frankly, because it's all there. It's just gifted to us, along with some really good music and cheesy plot lines. So in 1984, there was a movie called The Natural. Have you ever seen The Natural, Jackie?
No. I was born in 1984.
Were you? Oh,
Yeah.
it was a very good year. There was a movie called The Natural, and it's a baseball movie. It starred Robert Redford, and he
Okay.
played a baseball player who was basically the greatest player ever. And an interesting scene in the movie was when he was injured and he really wanted to get back to the game, even though it would potentially it would risk his life. So someone asked him why it's so important to you, and he said, "You know, when I walk down the street, I want people to look at me and say, 'There goes Roy Hobbs, the best there ever was at this game.'" Now, as you well know, Jackie, he did not say that. He was not the first person to say that. That was taken from a real life incident.
Oh. What?
You didn't know.
Okay. No.
Okay, that line was borrowed from a baseball player named Ted Williams. It was actually paraphrased. That's not exactly what Williams said, but it's along the lines of what he said. Have you ever heard of Ted Williams?
I think I've heard the name. I don't know who it is.
Okay, fair enough. The problem is, Jackie, we've had this conversation
I'm so
before.
young. I know.
No, that is not the problem. You refuse to do your baseball homework.
That is not true.
You have a budding baseball prodigy on your hand. You go to the games, and you don't know the first thing about it.
Personally, I think I've impressed myself. I'm getting much better.
There's still, I feel like, a lot of work to be done. I've offered my time and expertise to you, and you have rebuffed me.
I don't want to do it.
I feel so rejected.
I don't want to do it.
Well, you're going to learn today about a famous play, but towards an end, right? We're going to be getting to where it comes to people's problems and how they can be solved.
Okay.
So So Ted Williams was a great baseball player. To understand how great he was, we have to talk about Mickey Mantle.
Okay.
Mickey Mantle, you've heard of Mickey Mantle. I know. I
That is,
knew you'd feel better about that. Has everyone listening heard of Mickey Mantle? By the way, don't be shy. I mean, go ahead and reach out and say something. Do you hate baseball analogies as much as my staff does? There's a reason there's only one on today. Because nobody can stand my baseball story.
everyone's running away.
Useful as they are, mind you.
Okay.
Let's get back to it. So Mickey Mantle was one of the greatest players ever. He was actually brought up by his father to be the greatest player ever. His father used to pitched him for hours on end, made him into a switch hitter. He was only a righty, and his father said, no, you have to learn how to hit lefty.
I know what that means.
Yeah, good. Well done, Jack.
Well, my son is a lefty, but.
Okay, well, you see, if your husband was as dedicated as Mickey Mantle's father, your son would be batting right-handed too.
Oh, maybe that'll start in September.
The Mick was so good, Jack, that he was brought up to the major leagues when he was 19, and his coach was saying he's going to be a combination of Babe Ruth and Joe DiMaggio. That's how good he was, right? So he was brought up to the major leagues at 19, and he was very good from the very beginning, but he wasn't yet great. Until in 1956, at the age of 25, I believe, 24 or 25, he put it all together. And he won the Triple Crown. You know what the Triple Crown is?
That's like the best award you could get in baseball, isn't it?
You're just talking out of your mind.
No, okay. I think it is, isn't it?
It's one of the great accomplishments. It basically means that it's not an award per se, although he did win the MVP, the most valuable player.
I know what that is.
Forgive me, I don't mean to talk about it. I just want you to understand. Okay, so he won this Triple Crown. The Triple Crown is when you lead the league in batting average, home runs, and runs batted in.
Yeah, isn't that like one of the hardest awards to receive?
It is, but it's not an award, really. It's an accomplishment, right?
Okay.
It's not gifted to you in the same way that an MVP, like people don't vote on it, right? It's just you lead in all those things. So he won the Triple Crown, and he also won the MVP award. The next year, he arguably had a better year. He hit for the highest average of his career. He hit 365. You can't even hold back the yawns. This is killing me.
I can't.
This is such an entertaining story.
No, it's my nose is running. I'm trying.
Okay. Do you have tissues? Okay. Yeah. I don't want an accident to happen.
I love the story. Keep going. I'm actually paying attention.
Thank you. Awesome. Yes. No. This is important stuff. Okay. So the next year, in 1957, he hit 365. It was the highest average of his career. Now, just so you know, if a baseball player hits 300, that meaning he gets a hit 3 times out of every 10 times at bat, that is an all-star level player. That's the standard of excellence.
Okay.
Right? Mickey hit 365, and he was 25 years old.
But it took him, though, 6 years to get to this point, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, he was always great, but he got into his prime in these 2 years, 56 and 57.
Right.
Yes, he was absolutely phenomenal. One of the all-time great players. So again, he hit 365 at the age of 25. This is not a math thing, but I want you to understand. 365 at the age of 25. This happened in 1957. Okay. Now, most people don't know this. That same year, Ted Williams hit 388.
Oh my God. How old was he, though?
38 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
He was not in his physical prime.
Right.
He hit 388 at the age of 38 when most guys are really starting to stink.
Yeah, they start to, yeah. You don't have that long stretch.
That's right. So, and that was before the age of steroids, because Barry Bonds was amazing in his 40s, but you know.
No, but that's what the whole dilemma, that I remember.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So I'm telling you this story to explain to you how great Ted Williams was.
That's crazy. 38 years old.
38 years old, he hit 3 he almost hit 400. If he had like 6 more hits, he would hit 400. 400. By the way, Ted Williams was the last guy to ever hit 400. In 1941, he hit 400. So he hit safely 4 times out of every 10 times at bat. He was the last guy to do it.
That I understand, and that's
Yeah.
intense. That's
And
crazy.
that's why he said his goal in life was to be the greatest hitter ever. Like this is all he wanted, and he arguably was. He was. I think he was behind Babe Ruth, but I think he was number 2 next to Babe Ruth. This is how amazing this guy was at baseball.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. Now, ask me about what's crazier.
What's crazier?
Okay. Ted Williams lost 5.5 years of his career in his prime because he went to war. He went to the Korean War and he went to World War II. That's how it was back then.
Oh, yeah, you had
Baseball
to.
players were just leaving. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. It happened to a lot of guys. Now, the thing is, when he went to war, he became a fighter pilot. Speaking of wingmen,
Literally.
he was John Glenn's wingman.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But could
And
you imagine like just all the most popular people in history from all different walks are all just one group of friends? Like, is that even normal?
things like that does happen. Like you get those kind of convergences.
Like,
You get like, yeah, it does happen.
it's like a joke. It's like, three men walk into a bar. Never is it like the three most famous individuals in history are all best friends.
Right, but these things happen. So here's a perfect example. You and I working for the same place.
True.
What are the
True.
chances that
True.
people of our caliber would come together? God would bring us together.
Oh, exactly, for a good reason.
So it does happen, right? So here's the thing. Ted Williams became one of the greatest pilots in the world, right? So he was arguably the greatest hitter ever. He was certainly one of them, and he became one of the best pilots in the world, right?
Insane.
This is all in the course of his career in his
Naturally.
20s, right? We're not done though. When he retired, he became the best fisherman in the world.
What?
That's a thing, apparently. I don't know.
Well, fishing is my nephew's fish, and it's becoming a very huge popular thing again. A ton of Isabel's friends, they fish. It's like that's pretty much what some of her friends from swim want to do. They just want to fish, like for a living.
Well, it makes sense to go from acting like a fish to
Exactly.
it's but this guy, he was actually in 2 fishing Hall of Fame, and he was considered like as good a fisherman as he was a baseball player. So he went from being one of the greatest baseball players to one of the greatest fighter pilots to one of the greatest fishermen like ever.
But it's so random.
It seems random.
None of those three things have anything to do with each other.
Well, yeah, but what's the one common denominator?
He's the best at everything he does. He's dedicated.
Yeah.
He's dedicated.
This is the kind of guy, right? He was so incredibly dedicated, so focused that whatever he did, he was great at.
That's impressive, though. I have met, like, there have been people in different stages of my life that no matter what, I actually have one very good friend now. And the funny part is, she doesn't think this at all. Like, she does so many things, and she's accomplished so much at 39 years old, by 39 years old. And it's so like, it's no big deal. Yeah, like, oh, no, it's really, and she doesn't talk about it. She doesn't know pattern. Oh, thank you so much. She goes, no, I just feel like I'm just doing the right thing. Like but everything she does, and as crazy as her life is and as busy as she is, I'm in awe of her. And when she, just when you think like, oh, I can't just, she just does 10 other things,
And she's great at them all.
Yeah, everything. And she started very late too. So culturally, she was not allowed to be active in sports growing up. And so when she got into college, she actually went away to college. And because of that is what gave her the opportunity. First hand in, she was varsity, literally captain of every sport she played, multi sports, phenomenal at school, like just everything. You know,
Mhm.
she went into military. She's just everything she does is just perfect, and it's
Well, you have
effortless.
people like this, and
Yeah.
here's what's interesting about them, and people at the highest level of every profession, they are basically nerds.
Mm.
Now, I want to
Extremely
talk about
intelligent.
nerds. Nerds get an unfair shake because how would you define nerd? Most people would define them as little skinny guys with glasses who get put into lockers and
Pocket
swirlies
protector.
and things like that. What'd you say?
A pocket protector.
A pocket protector, right? Right. That's how most people would describe nerds. Yet,
Uh-huh.
I'm telling you, Ted Williams was a nerd. Your friend, it sounds like, is a nerd. Bill Gates is a nerd, but he's more the pocket protector type.
Definitely.
But
And
Michael
she's not.
Jordan was a nerd. Aaron Judge is a nerd. I mean, these are all nerds. So how would you define nerds? Get a very unfair shake. How would you define nerd?
I mean, textbook nerd, how you said, based upon people like this with extreme success. I just feel like they had that natural ability, like they are definitely 10 steps ahead, where they level up without even realizing. They have an opportunity, they see it, they embrace it full on. They don't
Okay.
they kind of dive right in. There's no thinking, there's no work to be done. They just naturally roll with it. Like this is what I want to do.
Well, there
So I
is
do.
thinking, and there's a lot of work. So I don't think it's a matter necessarily of native ability. Obviously, to hit a baseball, you have to have native ability. But Ted Williams hit
I,
more baseballs when he was young than anyone in the world. That's according to him. He used to hire other
is
kids to
that
pitch
another thing?
baseball. But
Uh-huh.
he hired kids to pitch baseball to him, to pitch baseballs, right? He wrote the book on hitting.
Yeah, but I
So
think what I'm hearing though is also the determination. Like, I mean, these are
absolutely,
anybody with this. So, for example, uh, and I'm taking this, being relevant to a friend of mine. So when I speak about her, she is determined. Like she has a goal in mind. So she's doing something with a cause and good reason. So therefore, without even doing it, it's already been accomplished. If that makes any sense. She's like, okay, this is what I want to do. It's for the right thing, and this is what I'm doing.
yes,
And she sees it through.
right.
Um, very dedicated in everything, even if it's not 150% of her attention. 5% of her dedication is 100%. Like she's able to multitask and just do.
Well, and I hear you, and let me give you my definition of what a nerd is. And this is why I have so much admiration for nerds, and this is why nerds run the world,
Mhm.
which they literally do. I mean, yeah, there might be some like, old banking families but nerds run the world these days,
Yeah.
right? Okay. My definition of a nerd is someone who can stay interested over a long period of time.
Oh, that's 100%.
Right? Where everyone else is becoming disinterested and they are going off and doing the nerd can stay interested and the nerd stays interested in the right things. Let me tell you what I mean by that. All right. We have a client on the program right now. You know her. Her name starts with an R.
Oh, mm-hmm.
Okay. You speak to
Mm-hmm.
her on a regular basis. So she's doing the program, and I'm getting, she's doing very well. She's losing weight. She loses weight. I get a happy emoji. She doesn't lose weight one day. I get a crying emoji. I'm like, there's no crying in weight loss. I, no
How much
crying
do you
emoji.
love saying that?
Yeah, but Jen used to say that a lot. But here's what I told her, and based on something that I realized, it dawned on me that she was very, very interested in the scale, right?
Okay.
And she was bored by the details, like the parts of the program you have to do the process,
Oh, okay. Got it.
right?
Okay.
So I started telling her the correct attitude is you need to be bored by the scale and super interested in the process.
Okay. To stay motivated.
It's not even about motivation. To ultimately, if you want to be good at something, no matter what that thing is, The focus has to be on what you're doing. It has to be on the process and on the details. If you can stay interested in that, the results will come.
Good
And
point.
that's what a Ted Williams was able to do. And that's what a Michael Jordan was able to do. Imagine being Michael Jordan
No.
and every 30 seconds you're looking at the scoreboard, right? He
Yeah.
was so involved and so interested in what he was doing. I'm not saying he never looked at the scoreboard. Of course, he was a great winner.
Yeah.
The scoreboard tells you how you're doing, but his interest stayed primarily on what he was doing on the process. And he was able to keep that interest over a long period of time. Same thing with Ted Williams, same thing with Warren Buffett, like, whoever. The scoreboard just tells you who you are and how you're doing. But if the focus is always on it, then you're not going to be great. You're doing it for the wrong reasons, and your interest is wanes.
That's true.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely does.
So I feel like this is something that we see with our clients a lot, right? The interest is on the wrong thing. The interest is on the scale, and the interest needs to be on the process. Because what happens over time when your interest is on the scale or on the scoreboard?
Well, it also become blind to it. Like you just kind of fall out of routine. And same thing when it becomes for weight loss. I mean, you just get bored.
You get
It,
bored,
it's
your interest wanes.
yeah, it's just the same routine every day.
Right.
You almost start to anticipate the results before you get on, and you almost talk yourself out of it before doing anything. So you then start to sometimes step backwards.
You're doing it for the wrong reason,
Uh-huh.
right? I mean, of course it's the right reason. Of course everyone wants to lose weight,
Right, right.
right? But the focus is on the wrong place, and you tend to go up and down with that focus, with the scale, with the scoreboard, with the right. Like if a student, if Isabella, if her mind is always on the grades, then
Hmm.
what is her mind not on?
On the actual studies.
Yeah, on the studying, on the learning,
Right, absolutely. The
right?
emphasis.
But if she never paid attention to her grades, and she really cared about the learning the material, how do you think her grades would be?
They'd always be consistent.
They'd always be
They'd always
consistent,
be, yeah.
and she'd probably be able to stay interested because um, a lot of students do that. They'll focus on the grades. They do everything just for the grades. They'll argue about the grades with the
Oh
teacher
yeah.
if the grades aren't good, right? They're always looking at it. They'll do extra credit and whatever, but they're missing out on what they're supposed to be focusing on, which is the learning. They're
Right.
missing the big picture.
And now they're playing catch up by doing something else to get to that point.
Yeah. And meanwhile, the nerds are doing science experiments in their basement, like
Hmm.
for fun,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, yeah, good time.
The love of learning. So this is what we can learn from a Ted Williams, and this is why I went through that whole long story and taught you a little bit about baseball in the process. Now, any questions at this point?
For that, no.
Okay, good. There's another aspect because I feel like when the focus, when the that interest, boredom thing is upside down, right? You should be relatively bored with the scale
Hmm.
when it comes to weight loss. You should be, I say relatively, because you can't be completely, right? If it's the end of the game and you're down by 4 points, you need to know that and you need
Right.
to up your efforts, right? Um, but you should be relatively bored. So in the case of that client of ours, she started texting me like, "Oh, I'm down a pound and a half today," and I'm like, "Great, boring." And she
Boring.
got it. She got it, and she was like, "Yes, yeah, I'm bored with that."
Yeah.
Like, and I try to impart that to some of our clients, and I'm like, "You need to be interested in the process and bored." And they're like, "How could I be bored with this kid?" Like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
No, it's true.
I
But yes,
know.
that way, I think I actually had that moment. First time I did the program where it was like I saw the results, I felt great, and every day I was like excited about it, and I was still excited. And then like midway through, maybe closer to day like 25, 26-ish around there, all of a sudden it became such a tremendous difference that my focus did shift where I was like, oh, I forgot to weigh myself today. I forgot to, because now I became so fixated on all of the other things that were happening. I didn't even think about the scale.
You lost interest in the process,
Yeah.
right? And you were only interested in that scale. It's like, to go
That was
back
my
to a
safety
sports
net.
doctor, huh?
It was my safety net. I felt like if it's not on the scale, that means it's not working. If my numbers are not, it's not working.
Right.
And then it was working anyway, that I shifted gears and I was really fixated on everything else it was doing for me.
Yes. And meanwhile, who's to say it's not working? Because often there's not enough of an understanding to know if
Correct.
it's working or not. Because
Correct.
the expectation is that it's going to be linear. You're going to lose the same amount every day. It's going to be very
Mhm.
consistent.
Yep.
I mean,
It's
that
not.
doesn't happen. So that's not understanding. That's something else that these nerds understand. They're focused on the process and they understand. Like, if Ted Williams was about, okay, if I hit 2 homers yesterday, if I don't hit 3 homers today, then I'm giving up.
Right now, you can't.
Right? It's absurd when you think about it. No, he was interested in his swing. He was interested in the detail. And there's a lot of details. You can get as deep as you wanted it. The more interested you are, the more that'll happen naturally without having to force it.
Right.
Right? But there's another thing though, Jack, and that's and it relates to this, right? What tends to interest people? Process doesn't interest them
Results.
necessarily. Results are interesting to people,
Results.
right?
Yeah.
So again, I mean, you don't always get results, so it's hard to sustain that. And a nerd is able to sustain interest, right?
I
So
think
yeah,
I think it's also when we say results, like from a weight loss perspective, if you start to stagger or you're flat, it's knowing how much hardship it was or how hard it was to get to that point. It's also hard for them to keep interest because they still don't believe it. The
tell me more
process
about it.
is a struggle. So it's a struggle for people. I mean, I
It's
know
not a
that
struggle for everybody. No,
no,
no.
no, not at all.
The
But there are
people
some
with the right
people,
focus, it's not a struggle for.
correct. So getting to that point for them to actually feel successful and that they are losing the weight and going to keep it off, once it starts to slow down, they lose it. Like they'll
Some
start like,
people
all right,
do. Yeah.
well, no, that means I'm gonna go backwards. That's
That's
it. This
right.
is all I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then it kind of scares them a little where they not that they're losing interest, but the fear sets in. It's that, oh no, now what? Now I'm flat. Now nothing worked. All this work, and they start to spiral out of control.
Yes, but again, that does have to do with interest in a sense because there's so much invested in the result,
Yeah.
and instead of being relatively bored with the result on a day-to-day basis,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that's where it's a wrong focus. The focus
Agreed.
needs to be on the process. So here's what interests people. It seems like, right? Results interest people. Novelty interests people.
Novelty.
Yeah, things that are new.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
If we were to plot people's interest in the program from the beginning right to the end, we would probably see it go down because then it becomes a typical day-to-day thing,
Yes.
right?
It's also the anticipation. I feel like because our results are there is a guarantee with our results, so you also anticipate that, and when you're come to that point where you're losing and you're just about there or not just there yet and there's more to still come, there's like that waiting period where people don't know, they almost don't know how to react. you know it could go either way. There are people that won't complete 'cause like, oh, I hit it, that's it, I feel great, this is the best I felt, and then they end up reversing all their good work.
Again, it's an inability to stay interested in the process. It's only interest. Our interest in human beings seems to be in the wrong place most of the time, right? There's a reason why drugs and alcohol are popular. There's a reason why pornography is popular. There's a reason why we're materialistic and keeping up with the Joneses. Right? Our interest tends to be with results. It tends to be, and probably more so in this culture than others.
The
It,
shiny object.
it tends to be with novelty, right? The shiny object.
Yeah.
Here's another thing that we're interested in, and this is a big part of the problem. We're interested in drama and extremes.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah, that
interested in
that's
we're super interested in danger.
well, yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I see that. Yeah, that's true. No, yeah. I mean, I think that those a lot of people now when you have conversation come to a point where they don't, again, interest or not, a lot of people effort wise, they want mindless, brainless things that don't require effort. And I feel like those that are attracted to drama, those that are attracted to those things, social media, those types of platforms are just, it's mindless scrolling. It's just, you don't have to use your brain at all. And a lot of people have lost that functionality of wanting to work hard and feel dedicated. Just like when you were using your analogy for those
Well,
baseball players, there's
right,
dedication,
and
effort.
that's a cultural thing. But what I'm saying is a little different. Is uh, so okay. So you're not interested, like in your life. You're bored with your life. It's the same thing every day, right? It feels efforty. It feels like a struggle and whatever. One day there's a fire in your house.
Uh huh.
Suddenly you're really interested. The
Okay.
danger is really, and you should be, right? I mean, you have to handle the fire, but that danger is really interested, is really interesting. It's not interesting when things are going along at a normal clip, the way it's supposed to be, but it's very interesting when something is out of the norm, when something is an extreme situation. So I feel like as a result of that, what people tend to do is the focus is so much on danger that they create danger over and over. Like I say this to our clients sometimes, the ones who go up and down with their weight. The problem is that we're half arsonist and half firemen.
I mean, cause it and then put it out.
Cause it and then put it out over and over again, right? Like you're not interested in the process of building health, and you are interested in certain pleasures, sensory pleasures, eating and drinking, whatever, right? And then as a result the weight goes up and it goes up and it goes up, and then it gets to a point where it's like danger and there's a flashing light. Can't fit into my clothes, I'm invited
Here.
to a
Yeah.
wedding, right? And
Yeah.
now all of a sudden there's a ton of interest, and so you put out the fire. Our program is great at doing that, right? A person puts out the fire. Fire's out, interest dies, and now all of a sudden
Yeah.
that whole thing starts over again. So we're half firemen, we're half arsonists. We keep starting those fires and then having to put them out. And that's what we're doing. We're managing dangers as opposed to living in a more ideal way because we're interested in the process.
Right. That's true.
Have we
And now
discussed?
it's just a desperate race to the finish. Like I just need to get this done. I don't care by any means.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's how this conversation started because we were talking about, holism versus kind of like a medical approach which treats symptoms,
Mm-hmm.
which fights symptoms, and we were also, I think we mentioned some of these drugs, uh,
Yes.
right? Which, by the way, our program, I haven't seen the numbers on them, but I'm pretty sure that the numbers of people who do our program are better than the numbers from people who do those
Well,
things.
it's funny. So, doing, and I've been getting, there's one, I won't say it out loud, but there's one particular place that I want to go to for something completely separate, nothing of what we do. But now they offer these semiglutide injections.
Yes.
And I'm getting these emails constantly, and all you're seeing is a before and after photo. And that's it. And a sale at a promotion. And you could be this.
Opposed to what?
I want what else is happening? What's happening inside? Just yes, you may look better, but do you feel better? Do you feel you have more energy? Are you sleeping better? Are your headaches gone? Are your cravings gone? Are you eating well? What have you learned? Like there are so many things that we touch upon completing a program that we've given you a full package, which is either a Kickstarter or your now new path, right? With results, but it changes everything inside as well as outside.
Right.
And I'm only seeing a before and after, which is wonderful. This is that if the individuals who feel that that is their best route and that works for them, by all means, go for it. But I'm looking, I'm like, well, there's got to be more. I mean, wh- how's your cholesterol? How is your, diabetes? Are you still on that medication? Are you still taking, there are things that are not measured at all. It's just the physical.
Well, and those things may or may not be getting better. But I think what you're speaking to, though, is that it's the difference between going towards something and going away from it, which has everything to do with what we're discussing,
Uh-huh.
right? The managing danger is the tendency is to do an extreme thing, right? To me, in my mind, taking those injections is an extreme thing because
Yeah.
there's that fire and you have to put it out
Yes.
and you have no interest in the actual process. You
Yes.
only have interest in the result. And that is, robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's like, you pay now or you pay later with interest and penalties.
Any means necessary. Yeah.
And so that's what we're seeing. So all now, here's a funny thing also. Have you ever noticed by the time a person comes to us, they've done like, 12 other programs?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
No, there are some people that have been, I mean, literally the loop around where it's like everything else but this.
right.
And it's not, and it's funny, it's not that far off the back burner for them when they walk in the door until they sit down like, oh my gosh, I wish I found this sooner.
Yes, but it's the same mechanics that we're seeing over and over again, right? It's because the interest is not on building health, so the interest is only on that scale. And then when because there's no interest in the process, inevitably they do worse. They come to us,
Mhm.
right? People will leave us and go somewhere else and do something that's crazy,
Yeah.
uh, because they of that inability or lack of desire to retain their interest
Yeah.
in the process on a day-to-day basis because it's all about that final result. That's all they
Yes.
want. The business people who are involved with weight loss, especially a medical type of weight loss, they know this. They prey on this, right? And I don't even put it on them. Like I couldn't do that. I couldn't sell, those kinds of drugs, injections.
No.
I couldn't do it.
No.
But I mean, how much can we blame them when it's what the market is asking for?
Well, yes. That's it. There is a business in everything, whether we can put our heads on a pillow at night and say, okay, you know what? It's okay. It's all right. Well, I'm making a living and I'm giving them what they ask for. Not everybody is built for that. There is a lot of things out there that should not be the resource.
Yeah.
More than not, but because it's so wide stream and everyone is doing it and it's out there, it seems it's like it's okay. But it's okay. It can't be
Well,
that
it's
bad.
it's
Everyone's doing it. The doctor said it's okay.
the truth is it's right. So it's a cycle, right? It's a
Yes.
because entrepreneurship 101 is you find out what a person wants and you give it to them,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
So a person wants to lose weight in a way that they don't have to do anything. Okay,
Yes.
good. So you have this product now. It's a medication, right? It's not necessarily going to improve health. It might imperil health, but it's what a person wants. They know that at some level
Hmm.
and they're willing to do it. So you give
Yeah.
it. So that's entrepreneurship 101.
Yeah.
But as a result, it creates the perception that that's how you solve problems.
Right.
Right? You solve problems with something like a medication that sort of hijacks your physiology.
Yep.
And
Literally.
so you have people that's what they do.
Yes.
They keep slamming their head against the wall in a sense because instead of taking the right steps to build and create health, they keep doing the short term, putting out the fire solution. So I would submit when I said that this is the biggest problem, or at least one of the biggest problems that human beings face, it's in every aspect of life. It's
Oh
not only
yeah.
weight loss, it's not only in health, it's in grades, it's in business, it's in whatever. The inability to keep interest in where the interest should be, and the constantly creating the danger and then trying to put it out. This is how more people than not are navigating their life.
Correct. Yeah, I think that a big takeaway from this, regardless of health or any aspect of life, when you say interest, I also look at value. I mean, you have to see that the effort in doing something, there is value in that, and it's something that's beneficial for you and your life and your future and your well-being. That should be enough to stay engaged and want to do more and do better. And
Yeah.
it's some people tend to fall off because they don't believe it anymore. And I think it's because the market is so saturated with quick fixes because we live in a fast-paced world.
We sure do. Uh,
It's the quick fix for everything. It's even as much as getting your gas, going to particular gas stations. Download the app, preset your gas, save 5%. Everything is the quick and easy for everything. And not to say that that's not convenient and it's always, and it works. Sometimes it's great for us. But, there could be the new Starbucks. It's a drive through. Like it's right here. I don't have to cross over Route 9. And it's like, oh, that's great. But it used to be like, let's go walk for a cup of coffee. Why don't I park?
so literally, for people who aren't aware of this, literally where our office is in Marlboro,
I'm not complaining.
across it's by a highway. Across from the highway, there's
Literally,
a Starbucks.
mirror
It's been there.
image.
It's been there for years, right? Now they opened a Starbucks on the same side of the highway, just like you could walk there from our office in 30 seconds.
There is a light. We can walk it.
And so we're excited, right? Theoretically, you could cross that highway, but who's going to cross the highway, right? So that little bit of convenience has changed everything. It's a game changer.
A game changer. It is, but it's those things that, and because we're so accustomed to this life that we're even doing it with these actions, we don't even realize. In that shop, there are phenomenal shops in that shopping center of our office where I can probably handle 5 things off of a to-do list in one shopping visit, right? Do you park your car by Staples and walk to Lavodi's or walk over to TJ Maxx, or do you go to Lavodi's
You get a
and then
car.
walk your car?
Yeah.
It's things like, it's these simple things because it's the time, it's the quick, it's a fast pace. We're always rushing against the clock and not realizing the end result of our goals of anything.
Well, listen to this true story. So on Friday, I was here in Cranford, and I left the office and I left the keys in the office.
Oh,
So the keys are both the office keys, but I also have my car keys on them. I'm like, oh, I won't say what I said, but anyway, fortunately, the landlord, he has another business. He owns a restaurant in town, right?
okay.
So the first thing I do is I call him up. I'm like, listen, can you come here? Can you bring me the keys? He's like, I'm really busy here. Can you walk over? And I'm like, oh my God, walk over. Yeah. So meanwhile, I mean, it's like
we can walk everywhere.
yeah, it's a 15-minute walk, right?
Yeah.
But it was hot out and whatever. But listen, I mean, so the problem is, we could talk about this forever. Everyone has some understanding of this, that things are too convenient. The problem is it's become an addiction, this convenience. Like, how crazy do you get if you go to load a website and it doesn't happen in a fraction of a second? I mean, you become livid.
Yes.
So it's really, we're in a very weird state. It keeps getting worse because things keep getting a more immediate. Jackie, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
When you were growing up in the 1920s, do you remember? You've done research papers, right? You were a student. You've done a lot of research papers. Okay.
Yes.
Did you ever do a research paper before the time of the internet?
Yes.
You have. Okay. What did you have to do? How were you able to research
Library.
You went to the library, right? And
yeah. Wait. This is something, believe it or not, that is on my to-do list for my children. My children don't have a library card.
That's a shame.
My kids, and I'll tell you why. Because convenience, right? My children, both of my, they enjoy reading. They always have. So luckily, any of my daughter's books I would save for my son, unless they were not necessarily for him, as she got older, certain series, but for the most part, like those young starting books, I always save. So we always purchased the book in the series. We'd purchase them at Barnes and
Right.
Noble. We'd order them online. We'd share and swap with friends, and we always save them. I used to go to a library, peruse the shelves, look back and forth, pick out my book, check out. I would take 3 books, 4 books, read them, and I would be in such a rush because that card in the back, my information was on it. I had to be back by a certain time. When they came out with those plastic library cards, I was like, "Oh, this is the coolest thing in the world!" Like it literally it was a gateway to so much. It
Yeah.
was how when we first started using computers, before we even had computers, you used to be able to go to the library and use that computer.
Yes.
Like it was just such a crazy experience, but that's
That's
how I did
right.
my research. Yeah,
Listen, I'm going to make a suggestion for you with your kids.
tell me.
Do them a favor and tell them that they are not allowed to use the internet when they have to do a research paper.
I know.
Let them learn how to use an encyclopedia, right? We had a set of encyclopedias. We were
Well,
very
I
fortunate. We
remember
had
my
it at home.
grandma buying the
That's
first.
right.
It
So
was like,
listen,
oh my God.
we could go on about this forever. I mean, we know the problems of the world. These are the kinds of things people they sit around and they talk about with their friends and complain about, and we're probably not going to solve it all today.
No.
But let's just kind of sum up. What
Yeah,
we were saying is that people's focus, people's interest tends to be more on results, less on process.
correct.
When that happens, interest inevitably wanes.
Hmm.
The correct approach, probably to life, definitely to weight loss, is to be relatively bored about the scale. You lose a pound, boring. You gain a pound, boring. Focus on the process. Be interested in the details of the process. Like how could I create healthier food? How
Don't
could I
let
get
that
in
be
a
your
little
drive.
more exercise? Right. How could I enjoy this more as opposed to gritting my teeth and doing it so I can get that result on the scale?
Correct.
Right? It's just not sustainable based on what I've seen. And we know from people who are considered masters, and we started out talking about a baseball master named Ted Williams, who wasn't only a baseball master,
I'm
right?
totally
The
Google
ability,
his fishing career when we get off.
what'd you say?
I'm gonna Google his fishing career when we get off.
Who he was able to become the world's greatest fisherman. So because of where his focus was, and he was able to maintain interest. This is what nerds do. We should all be nerds. Nerds is considered a
It's a
pejorative,
positive thing.
considered an insult. It is not. Is the highest thing you can aspire to is to be a nerd in today's world.
Yes.
So I would encourage that for everybody. I would encourage people to try to, and I'm preaching to myself first of all, to try not to be so danger oriented,
We're all guilty of this.
right? That we're constantly creating and putting out those fires. I cannot give people a 3-step plan the way to do this. I'm hoping that if people take on this understanding, then they can come up with solutions for themselves. It's so hard to change that focus that has been ingrained in us in every way since we were born into this world. But I would submit that it's a necessary transformation.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Long and short of it, just to add to this, regardless of our program, anything we do, it's very easy to spiral out. And I always use that term because as a mom, as a full-time working busy mom, my children are busy with all good, wonderful things. It's easy to get wrapped up in it. I tend to run things very organized and very tight. So as it gets a little too crazy, especially towards the end of things, like now coming towards the tail end of activities, and finally, this is our kickoff to summer, the month of August with my family. You see all those things that it's been undone, things that you work hard for, things that you were focused on, things that were straight laced and your routine and strict on. Now you just have to pull it back in. It does get easier. It's not all the time. It's not all the time. This is a temporary. So you have to just pull it back in, find the reason why you were interested in the first place.
That's right. And expand that interest.
Yes.
Again, as opposed to just being kind of like paycheck or scoreboard players. Awesome. Okay, good. So let's end off now.
Yeah, and
Everyone, have a terrific week. If you have any questions or comments about this, please feel free.
yes,
Don't lose interest in what we say.
no, no, we're making light of this, but the truth is, I mean, and if anybody is interested, today is the last day of our Christmas in July.
Oh, Christmas
Yes,
in July, last
Christmas in
day. Okay,
July.
jump on that. We
Yeah,
should have talked about that earlier. Okay. All right,
no,
let's
that's
end off
okay.
now.
Bye,
Goodbye.
guys.